The stars outside the viewport shimmered like tiny diamonds scattered across an endless black canvas. The ship, named Eos, glided silently through the cold vacuum of space, its engines humming softly as it carried hundreds of passengers fleeing the chaos of Earth's outer colonies. Among them was Alex Carter, a man who had spent most of his life on one of the harshest planets in the galaxy, a so-called Deathworld. His face bore the marks of years lived under punishing skies, with sharp lines etched into his skin and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of countless storms. Alex wasn't much for conversation. He preferred solitude, leaning against the cool metal walls of the passenger bay while others around him whispered nervously about their uncertain future. Some spoke of the rumored safety zones they were heading toward, places where humanity could rebuild without fear of collapse or invasion. Others talked about the dangers still lurking out there: pirates, malfunctioning ships, and uncharted asteroid fields. Alex listened quietly, his arms crossed over his chest, knowing better than most how quickly things could go wrong. It happened suddenly. A loud alarm blared through the corridors, startling everyone aboard. Red warning lights flashed overhead, bathing the cabin in an eerie glow. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, strained but calm. "Attention all passengers. We are encountering unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated and secure yourselves immediately." Alex didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed onto a nearby handrail just as the ship lurched violently to one side. The hum of the engines grew louder, almost deafening, as the crew worked frantically to stabilize the vessel. Outside the viewports, chunks of rock tumbled past, glowing orange, as they burned up in the ship's protective shields. It was an asteroid field, one far denser than anyone had anticipated. For several tense minutes, the Eos fought against the relentless barrage of debris. Sparks flew from exposed wires in the ceiling, and the floor shook beneath Alex's boots. Passengers screamed, clutching each other or burying their faces in their hands. But Alex stayed focused, his grip tightening on the rail as he braced himself for whatever came next. Then, with a sickening crunch, the ship hit something big. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the hull, knocking people off their feet and throwing loose objects crashing into walls. Alarms wailed even louder now, joined by the hiss of escaping air as sections of the ship began to breach. Emergency protocols kicked in, sealing off damaged compartments and rerouting power to critical systems. Still, it wasn't enough. Through the chaos, Alex caught glimpses of the devastation unfolding around him. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Shattered glass littered the floor, glittering dangerously in the dim light. People cried out for help, some trapped under fallen debris, others bleeding from cuts and bruises sustained during the crash. Alex moved quickly, helping those he could reach, pulling survivors away from collapsing bulkheads and guiding them toward safer areas of the ship. But then disaster struck closer to home. As Alex worked to free a young woman pinned beneath a twisted piece of metal, another violent jolt threw him backward. Pain exploded across his abdomen as he slammed into a jagged edge of the wreckage. When he looked down, he saw blood soaking through his shirt, spreading rapidly across the fabric. The wound was deep, slicing clean through muscle and tissue. For a moment, everything went blurry, and Alex felt himself slipping. "No," he muttered through gritted teeth, forcing himself to stay conscious. He pressed one hand firmly against the gash, trying to slow the bleeding, though he knew it wouldn't be enough. Injuries like this were fatal no matter where you were, and especially here, stranded light years from any proper medical care. The ship continued to plummet, its trajectory spiraling out of control. Through the haze of pain, Alex heard the pilot announce their imminent crash landing on an unknown planet below. There was no time to think, no chance to prepare. All he could do was hold on tight and hope for the best. When the Eos finally hit the ground, it was with a thunderous roar that shook the very core of the vessel. Metal screeched and groaned as the ship skidded across the surface, plowing through dirt and vegetation before coming to a shuddering halt. Darkness enveloped the interior as power failed completely, leaving only the faint glow of emergency lights to illuminate the carnage. Alex lay sprawled on the floor, his vision swimming in and out of focus. Blood pooled around him, sticky and warm against his skin. He tried to move, but every attempt sent fresh waves of agony coursing through his body. Breathing became harder, each shallow inhale feeling like fire in his lungs. Somewhere in the distance he heard voices calling out, muffled and distorted, but they might as well have been miles away. He was fading fast, slipping into unconsciousness. Despite his best efforts to fight it, time passed in fragments after that. Vague sensations filtered through the fog. Cold hands pressing against his wound, strange noises buzzing in his ears, flashes of bright light piercing his closed eyelids. At one point, he thought he heard someone speaking, though the words made no sense. Their tone was urgent, almost frantic, yet there was something oddly mechanical about it too. When Alex finally opened his eyes again, he found himself lying on a smooth, metallic surface. The air smelled sterile, tinged with an unfamiliar chemical scent. Above him loomed towering figures, their forms sleek and insect-like, with multiple limbs and glowing eyes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. They weren't human. They couldn't be. And yet, they moved with purpose, surrounding him with instruments and devices that hummed softly as they worked. One of the creatures leaned closer, examining him intently. Its gaze lingered on the gaping wound in his side, which had been hastily bandaged with synthetic materials. To Alex's surprise, the injury didn't hurt as much as it should have. In fact, he felt different. Stronger somehow, as if his body were repairing itself at an accelerated rate. The realization sparked a flicker of hope within him. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't going to die after all. But as he stared up at the alien beings hovering over him, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that surviving this ordeal would come at a cost, one he wasn't ready to pay. Unbeknownst to him, the creatures shared his unease. These Etherians, as they called themselves, were renowned for their advanced medical technology and unparalleled understanding of biology. Yet nothing in their vast database could explain what they were seeing now. Alex's cells regenerated, faster than any organism they'd ever encountered, defying the natural laws of healing they had long taken for granted. His immune system actively resisted their treatments, adapting in real time to neutralize foreign substances introduced into his bloodstream. Dr. Lyra Voss, the lead xenobiologist overseeing Alex's case, exchanged worried glances with her team. She had dedicated her life to studying the intricacies of life forms across the galaxy. But this human was unlike anything she'd ever seen. His resilience suggested centuries of evolution driven by extreme environmental pressures, conditions so brutal they forced his kind to adapt or perish. It was both fascinating and terrifying, raising questions about the limits of survival and the potential consequences of such rapid biological advancement. As Alex drifted in and out of consciousness, the Etherians debated what to do with him. Should they continue treating him as a patient or treat him as a scientific anomaly? The decision weighed heavily on Dr. Voss, who found herself torn between her duty as a healer and her curiosity as a scientist. Little did she know, this choice would set into motion events that would challenge not only her beliefs, but the very foundation of her society. And so, amidst the ruins of the crashed ship and the sterile confines of an alien medical facility, two vastly different worlds collided, one driven by the relentless will to survive, the other by the insatiable thirst for knowledge. What neither side realized was that their fates were now intertwined, bound together by the fragile thread of a single human's improbable survival. The Etherian medical facility was a maze of smooth metallic surfaces and glowing panels that pulsed with soft light. The air smelled clean, but carried a faint tang of chemicals unfamiliar to Alex. He lay on a platform suspended slightly above the ground, his body connected to various devices that hummed softly as they monitored his vital signs. Tubes ran from machines into his arms, delivering fluids and nutrients while others analyzed his blood and tissue samples. Despite the severity of his injuries, Alex felt an odd sense of calm, not because he trusted these insect-like aliens, but because his body seemed to be healing itself faster than it should. Dr. Lyra Voss stood nearby, her elongated limbs moving with precision as she reviewed data displayed on a hovering screen. Her 6 eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the information scrolling before her. She had spent hours studying Alex's condition, yet every new discovery only deepened her confusion. His cells regenerated at an astonishing rate, closing wounds and repairing damage far quicker than any organism in the Xyntharian database. Even more puzzling was how his immune system reacted, adapting almost instantly to counteract anything foreign introduced into his bloodstream. Cale Rin, her colleague and a specialist in evolutionary biology, approached her. His voice clicked and chirped in their native language, though translator devices rendered it into clear English for Alex's benefit. "His physiology is unlike anything we've seen," Kyle said, his tone laced with both awe and concern. "It's as if his body has evolved to thrive under constant stress." Lyra nodded slowly, her antennae twitching slightly. "Yes, but to what extent, and why? Humans are not known for such rapid adaptation. This level of resilience suggests extreme environmental pressures over generations." She paused, turning her gaze back to Alex. "We need to understand where he comes from and what made him this way." Meanwhile, Alex drifted in and out of consciousness. When he was awake, he could hear snippets of their conversation through the translator device clipped to his ear. At first, their words meant little to him. Pain and exhaustion clouded his mind. But as time passed and his strength returned, curiosity began to take hold. These creatures were clearly intelligent, their movements deliberate and purposeful. Yet there was something unsettling about the way they studied him, as if he were less a person and more a puzzle to solve. One day, when Alex opened his eyes, he found Lyra standing close, her head tilted slightly as she observed him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in halting but understandable English, she said, "You survive. How?" Alex blinked, surprised by the question. His throat felt dry, and speaking required effort, but he managed a raspy reply. "I'm from a tough place. We adapt, or die." Lyra's antennae flickered, signaling interest. She gestured for Cale to bring over a small tablet-like device. On its surface, images appeared. Photos of barren landscapes, toxic atmospheres, and monstrous creatures. Alex recognized them immediately. They were Deathworlds, planets so hostile that most species couldn't survive even a single day on them. "Your home?" Lyra asked, pointing to one image in particular, a desolate wasteland battered by perpetual storms. Alex nodded weakly. "Yeah, that's where I grew up. It's not easy." Kyle chimed in, his voice softer than Lyra's. "Humans like you, they live in places like this often?" Alex hesitated before answering. "Not all humans, just some. People who can handle it stay, others leave or don't make it." Lyra exchanged a glance with Kyle, their silent communication conveying volumes. To them, Alex represented proof of life's incredible tenacity. His people had endured conditions that would have wiped out most other species, forcing their bodies to evolve in ways that defied conventional science. It was a revelation that sparked both admiration and unease. As days turned into weeks, Alex's recovery progressed steadily. The wound in his abdomen healed completely, leaving behind only a faint scar. His strength returned, and with it came a growing awareness of his surroundings. He noticed how the Xyntharians treated him, not cruelly, but not entirely kindly either. They were careful, methodical, always observing and recording. Sometimes they performed tests without warning, drawing blood or attaching sensors to his skin. Though Alex understood they were trying to help, the lack of explanation left him feeling like a lab rat rather than a patient. Determined to regain some control, Alex began asking questions of his own. Using gestures and broken phrases, he tried to communicate with Lyra and Cale. Learning bits of their language in the process, he discovered that the Xyntharians were a highly advanced species, renowned for their scientific achievements. Their society valued knowledge above all else, striving to uncover the mysteries of the universe. Yet despite their progress, they faced challenges too. Diseases resistant to treatment, environmental degradation, and dwindling resources. One evening, as Alex sat upright on the platform, Lyra brought him a tray of food. It consisted of strange gelatinous substances and brightly colored fruits unlike anything he'd ever seen. Alex eyed it warily but took a cautious bite. To his surprise, it tasted sweet and refreshing, energizing his body almost instantly. "You need energy," Lyra explained simply. "To heal faster?" Alex nodded, swallowing another mouthful. After a moment, he pointed to himself and then to the room around him. "Why am I here?" he asked, his voice stronger now. Lyra hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, she replied, "You are special. Your body, strong, resilient. We want to learn, to help." Alex frowned, unsure whether to believe her. "Help who?" "Everyone," Cale interjected, joining the conversation. He held up his hands, mimicking the act of sharing. "If we understand your kind, maybe we find answers. For our people. For yours." Though skeptical, Alex couldn't deny the logic in their words. If his biology held secrets that could benefit others, perhaps cooperating wasn't such a bad idea. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their intentions than they let on. Over time, Alex's interactions with Lyra and Cale grew more frequent. They taught him basic phrases in their language, and in return, he shared stories of Earth and its colonies. He described the harsh realities of life on Deathworlds, the relentless storms, the deadly predators, the constant struggle for survival. He spoke of communities banding together to endure hardships, of individuals pushing themselves beyond their limits just to stay alive. Through his tales, Lyra and Cale gained insight not only into human resilience, but also into the spirit that drove Alex and his people forward. Yet not everyone shared their fascination. Word of Alex's presence spread quickly among the Zintherians, sparking debates within their ruling council. Some viewed him as a marvel, a testament to the power of evolution. Others saw him as a potential threat, fearing that humans' rapid adaptation might lead to aggression or expansionism. A faction of officials demanded stricter measures, insisting on invasive testing to unlock the secrets hidden in Alex's DNA. Lyra and Cale resisted these calls, arguing that exploiting Alex would violate their ethical principles. They believed that understanding him required patience and respect, not coercion. But pressure mounted, and tensions rose. One day, Alex overheard fragments of an argument between Lyra and a senior official. Though much of the conversation was lost in translation, the tone was unmistakable, angry, accusatory, and filled with urgency. That night, unable to sleep, Alex stared up at the ceiling, his mind racing. He didn't fully trust the Zintherians, but he couldn't deny that Lyra and Cale had shown him kindness. They had saved his life after all. Yet the thought of being used as a tool for someone else's gain gnawed at him. What did they truly want from him, and what would happen if he refused to cooperate? The next morning, Lyra approached him with a troubled expression. She handed him a small device, a communicator, and demonstrated how to use it. "For emergencies," she explained. "If you need us." Alex accepted the device cautiously, sensing there was more to her gesture than met the eye. Before he could ask, Cale entered the room carrying a stack of documents. His movements were hurried, his antennae twitching nervously. Without a word, he handed the papers to Lyra, who scanned them quickly before turning to Alex. "We must protect you," she said firmly. "Some do not agree with our methods. They will try to take you, use force if necessary." Alex's heart sank. So his fears were justified. He clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice tight. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm despite her alien appearance. "We fight for you. Together." Though uncertain of what lay ahead, Alex felt a flicker of hope. If nothing else, he knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Whatever the Zintherians wanted from him, he would face it head-on, with courage, determination, and the unyielding strength of a Deathworlder. The days that followed were tense. Alex could feel the weight of scrutiny growing heavier around him. Though Lyra and Kale continued to treat him with care, their movements became hurried, their conversations shorter. They avoided discussing the rising tensions within the Zintharian Council. But Alex didn't need them to spell it out. He saw it in their cautious glances, heard it in the clipped tones of their voices. Something was coming, something dangerous. One morning, as Alex sat on the edge of the platform, testing his strength by lifting a small metal object, Lyra entered the room carrying a tray of food. Her usual calm demeanor seemed strained, her antenna twitching more than usual. She set the tray down and looked at Alex with an expression he couldn't quite read. It was a mix of determination and regret. "We must prepare you," she said finally, her words slow and deliberate. "Things are changing." Alex set the object aside and turned to face her. "What do you mean?" Lyra hesitated, then gestured for him to eat. "There are factions among us who believe you are too dangerous to keep alive. They think your kind could pose a threat if left unchecked." Alex's jaw tightened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it aloud made his blood boil. "So what, they want to kill me?" "No," Kyle interjected, stepping into the room. His voice was calm but firm. "Not yet. But they will push for experiments, tests that go beyond healing. They want to break you apart to understand you." Alex stared at them, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't fight off an entire species. No matter how strong or resilient he was, these aliens had technology far beyond anything he'd ever encountered. If they decided to take him apart piece by piece, there wasn't much he could do to stop them. "What do you suggest?" he asked after a moment, his voice low. Lyra exchanged a glance with Kale before answering. "We protect you, for now, but we cannot do this alone. You must help us." Alex nodded slowly. "How?" Kale stepped closer, holding up a small device, a wristband-like gadget glowing faintly. "This will allow you to communicate with us directly. It can also track your location. If something happens, if they try to take you, we will know." Alex took the device cautiously, examining it before slipping it onto his wrist. It fit snugly, emitting a soft hum as it activated. "And then what?" he asked. "You rescue me?" Lyra shook her head. "If it comes to that, we may not be able to reach you in time. The Council has power, more than we do, but we can give you tools, knowledge, ways to defend yourself." For the next several days, Lyra and Kale worked tirelessly to teach Alex about their world. They showed him maps of the facility, pointing out escape routes and areas where security was weakest. They explained how their technology functioned, demonstrating how to disable alarms and bypass locks. At first, Alex struggled to grasp the concepts. They were so different from anything he'd seen on Earth, but his sharp instincts and quick learning helped him adapt. In return, Alex shared more about his own life. He told them stories of survival on Deathworlds, describing how he had learned to navigate treacherous terrain, evade predators, and endure harsh climates. He spoke of storms so violent they could strip flesh from bone, and creatures so monstrous they could swallow a man whole. Each story painted a vivid picture of resilience and resourcefulness, qualities that both fascinated and inspired Lyra and Kale. Through these exchanges, a bond began to form between them. Lyra, in particular, found herself drawn to Alex's quiet determination. Despite everything he had endured, he remained steadfast, refusing to give in to despair. There was a simplicity to his worldview, an acceptance of hardship as part of life, that resonated deeply with her. For someone raised in a society obsessed with perfection and control, Alex's outlook was refreshingly raw and honest. Kale, too, admired Alex's strength, though his admiration stemmed more from scientific curiosity than emotional connection. He marveled at how Alex's body continued to heal itself, even after enduring such trauma. Every test revealed new layers of complexity, challenging everything Kale thought he knew about biology. Yet beneath the fascination lay a growing unease. What did it mean for a species to evolve so rapidly, And what implications might that have for the future? As Alex absorbed their lessons, he began to notice subtle changes in his surroundings. Guards patrolled the corridors more frequently, their movements brisk and purposeful. Conversations among the staff grew quieter, almost secretive. Even the air seemed heavier, charged with anticipation. Something big was brewing, and Alex knew it wouldn't end well for him unless he acted fast. One evening, as Alex practiced disabling a simulated alarm system under Kale's watchful eye, Lyra rushed into the room, her antennae quivering with urgency. "They're coming," she whispered. "Tonight." Alex froze, his hands hovering over the device. "Who?" "The Council," Lyra replied, her voice trembling slightly. "They've ordered your transfer to a secure lab. Testing begins immediately." Alex felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What's the plan?" Kyle stepped forward, holding out a small pouch. Inside were tools, thin wires, tiny screwdrivers, and other gadgets Alex didn't recognize. "You'll need these," Kyle said, "to disable security systems along the way." "And then?" Alex pressed. "Then you run," Lyra answered firmly. "We'll create a distraction to buy you time. Once you're outside the facility, follow the markers. I'll send to your wristband. They'll lead you to a safe zone." Alex nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. Could he really trust them? What if this was all a trick to flush him out? But looking at Lyra and Kale, he saw no deception in their eyes, only fear and resolve. Whatever their reasons, they genuinely wanted to help him. That night, the facility buzzed with activity. Lights dimmed, signaling the start of the sleep cycle for most Xantharians. Alex lay still on the platform, pretending to rest while keeping one hand near the pouch of tools hidden beneath his pillow. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the silence. Hours passed. Just as exhaustion began to creep in, Alex heard the faint hum of approaching footsteps. He opened his eyes just enough to see shadows moving through the doorway. 3 figures entered the room, their forms sleek and insectoid, carrying restraints and medical equipment. Alex waited until they were close before making his move. With a swift motion, he grabbed the nearest tool from the pouch and lunged at the closest guard. The Xantharian let out a startled chirp, stumbling back as Alex disabled its weapon with practiced precision. The other 2 reacted quickly, reaching for their own devices, but Alex was faster. Using techniques Lyra and Kale had taught him, he disarmed them one by one, leaving them immobilized on the floor. Breathing hard, Alex glanced around the room. So far, so good. Now came the hard part, getting out. He slipped into the corridor, moving silently and sticking to the shadows. Alarms blared faintly in the distance, evidence of Lyra and Kale's promised distraction. Following the glowing markers on his wristband, Alex navigated the labyrinthine halls, avoiding patrols and disabling traps as he went. Each step brought him closer to freedom, and farther from the only allies he had in this alien world. Finally, he reached the exit. A heavy door reinforced with energy shields. Alex hesitated, studying the control panel beside it. This was the moment of truth. If he failed here, everything would be for nothing. Taking a deep breath, Alex got to work. His fingers moved deftly over the panel, rerouting circuits and overriding protocols. Sweat trickled down his forehead, but he ignored it, focusing solely on the task at hand. After what felt like an eternity, the shield flickered and died, allowing the door to slide open. Beyond it lay the planet's surface, a sprawling expanse of jagged rocks and swirling mist. The air was thin and cold, biting at his skin as he stepped outside. For a moment, Alex stood still, taking it all in. Freedom was within reach, but he knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. As he started moving, guided by the markers on his wristband, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't seen the last of the Xantharians or of Lyra and Kale. Whatever happened next, he vowed to survive, not just for himself, but for the fragile bond he had formed with 2 unlikely allies. Their fates were tied together now, bound by choices made in the heat of desperation. And as long as he drew breath, Alex intended to honor that bond, even if it meant facing the unknown alone. The planet's surface was harsh and unforgiving, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of the Zintherian facility. Alex moved quickly, his breath fogging in the cold air as he navigated the jagged terrain. The wristband on his arm pulsed, softly, guiding him toward the safe zone Lyra had promised. Each step felt like a gamble. Every shadow could hide danger, every sound might signal pursuit. Yet Alex pressed on, driven by sheer willpower and the knowledge that stopping meant capture, or worse. As he climbed over a ridge of sharp rocks, Alex paused to catch his breath. Below him stretched a vast valley shrouded in mist, its ground littered with twisted metal and debris. It looked like the aftermath of some ancient battle, though Alex couldn't tell if it was natural or man-made. He scanned the area carefully, searching for signs of life. So far, the only movement came from the wind whipping through the ruins. Suddenly, the wristband vibrated urgently, flashing a warning icon. Alex frowned, glancing around. Moments later, he heard it, the faint hum of engines cutting through the silence. Squinting into the distance, he spotted several sleek vehicles emerging from the mist, their shapes insectoid like the Zintherians themselves. They were coming for him. Alex cursed under his breath and broke into a run, weaving between the wreckage to avoid detection. His heart pounded as adrenaline surged through his veins. Every instinct screamed at him to keep moving, to find cover, to survive. But the vehicles were fast, closing the gap with alarming speed. Within minutes, they surrounded him, their headlights, casting long shadows across the ground. From the lead vehicle stepped a group of Zintherians, their forms towering and imposing. Unlike Lyra and Kale, these aliens carried an air of authority, their movements deliberate and commanding. One of them approached Alex, its glowing eyes narrowing as it studied him. "You cannot escape," it said in clipped English, its voice devoid of emotion. "Come with us." Alex clenched his fists, his body tensing as he prepared to fight. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The Zintherian tilted its head slightly, antennae twitching. "Resistance is futile. You are valuable, but expendable. Do not force us to harm you." For a moment, Alex considered charging at them, using surprise and speed to take them down. But there were too many, their weapons trained on him with deadly precision. Fighting would mean certain death or worse, capture. Reluctantly, he raised his hands in surrender. The Zintherians closed in, binding his wrists with energy cuffs that hummed faintly against his skin. As they led him back to the vehicles, Alex caught sight of something in the distance, a flicker of movement behind the ruins. Was it Lyra, Kyle, or just another trick of the light? He couldn't be sure, but the brief glimpse gave him hope. If they were still out there, maybe all wasn't lost. Back at the facility, Alex found himself in a new room, one designed specifically for experimentation. The walls gleamed with reflective surfaces, and the air smelled even sharper than before, carrying a metallic tang that made his skin crawl. Strapped to a platform similar to the one he'd healed on earlier, Alex felt vulnerable and exposed. Machines whirred around him, scanning his body and recording data with relentless efficiency. A group of Zintherian scientists entered, their heads buzzing with quiet chatter as they reviewed notes on floating screens. Among them was a senior official Alex hadn't seen before, a tall, broad-shouldered alien with intricate markings etched into its exoskeleton. Its presence commanded attention, and the others deferred to it without question. "This specimen is unique," the official stated, its voice resonating like a low hum. "We must determine the extent of its capabilities, and whether they pose a threat." One of the scientists stepped forward, holding a syringe filled with a glowing blue liquid. "We have developed a compound to suppress its regenerative abilities. If successful, we can proceed with more invasive testing." Alex's stomach churned as the scientist approached, the needle glinting ominously in the light. He struggled against the restraints, but they held firm, unyielding to his strength. Just as the tip of the syringe neared his arm, the door burst open and chaos erupted. Lyra and Kale stormed in, accompanied by a small team of armed Xantharians loyal to their cause. Energy blasts lit up the room as both sides exchanged fire, the sharp crackle of weapons filling the air. Alex watched in stunned disbelief as Lyra fought her way to his side, slicing through the restraints with a handheld tool. "We don't have much time," she shouted, pulling him upright. "Follow me." Without hesitation, Alex obeyed, following Lyra and Kale through the chaos. The narrow corridors outside were alive with commotion, alarms blaring as reinforcements rushed to contain the uprising. Alex stayed close to his rescuers, dodging blasts and leaping over fallen debris. His muscles burned with exertion, but he pushed through the pain, knowing that failure meant death. At one point, they encountered a squad of guards blocking their path. Kale stepped forward, brandishing a device that emitted a high-pitched frequency. The guards staggered, clutching their heads as the sound overwhelmed them. Seizing the opportunity, the group sprinted past, leaving the disoriented soldiers behind. Finally, they reached a hangar bay where a small scout ship waited, its engines already humming with readiness. Lyra ushered Alex inside while Kyle remained outside to hold off pursuing forces. As the hatch sealed shut, Alex saw Kyle exchange a final glance with Lyra, a silent farewell. "Go!" Kyle yelled, firing a volley of shots to create distance. "I'll hold them off." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes as she activated the ship's controls, lifting off just as enemy fire ricocheted off the hull. Alex sat in stunned silence, watching the facility shrink in the distance. For all their planning, their escape had come at a cost. Kyle had sacrificed himself to ensure their freedom. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Lyra piloted with steady hands, her expression grim as she navigated away from the planet. Alex sat beside her, gripping the edge of his seat as stars streaked past the viewport. Neither spoke for a long time, each lost in their thoughts. Eventually, Alex broke the silence. "Why did you do it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You risked everything. For me." Lyra hesitated before answering, her antennae drooping slightly. "Because you're proof that life finds a way. Your resilience, your spirit. It reminds us of who we used to be. Before we became so obsessed with perfection, so afraid of failure. You showed us what it means to adapt, to truly live." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her decision. Whatever happened next, he owed her and Kyle a debt he could never repay. The Kier ship continued on its course, heading toward a neutral trade hub where they hoped to find refuge. As they traveled, Alex stared out at the endless expanse of space, feeling both grateful and burdened. Grateful for the chance to live, burdened by the responsibility of carrying the hopes of two species on his shoulders. Somewhere out there, among the stars, lay answers, and perhaps allies willing to help bridge the divide between humans and Xantharians. Until then, Alex vowed to honor the sacrifices made for him by proving that survival wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about finding purpose in the struggle. And no matter how far the journey took him, he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't face it alone. The scout ship hummed softly as it sailed through the vast emptiness of space, its engine steady and reliable. Inside, Alex sat in silence, his gaze fixed on the swirling stars outside the viewport. The adrenaline from their escape had faded, leaving behind a deep exhaustion that weighed heavily on his body and mind. Yet sleep eluded him. Every time he closed his eyes, images of Kale's final moments flashed in his mind. The way he had stood firm against overwhelming odds, sacrificing himself without hesitation. It was a debt Alex didn't know how to repay. Lyra remained focused on piloting, her slender limbs moving with precision as she adjusted controls and monitored systems. Her expression was unreadable, but Alex could sense the grief radiating from her. She hadn't spoken much since they left the planet, retreating into herself as if trying to process everything that had happened. Alex wanted to say something, anything, to comfort her, but words felt inadequate. Instead, he sat quietly, respecting her need for space. Hours passed before Lyra finally broke the silence. "We're approaching the trade hub," she said, her voice soft but steady. It's neutral territory. No one there will care about our species or our past. Alex nodded, though unease prickled at the edges of his thoughts. Neutral or not, stepping into unknown territory always carried risks. He glanced at Lyra. What happens when we get there? She hesitated, her antennae twitching slightly. We find allies. People who understand the importance of cooperation, not exploitation. There are humans here, traders and refugees. They might help us contact your people. Together we can decide what comes next. Her plan sounded simple enough, but Alex knew better than to trust simplicity. In his experience, nothing ever went as planned. Still, he appreciated her optimism. After everything they'd been through, hope was a fragile but necessary thing. As they drew closer to the trade hub, the ship's sensors picked up increasing activity. Dozens of vessels docking and departing, their lights blinking like fireflies against the blackness of space. The hub itself was an enormous structure, resembling a cluster of interconnected domes floating in the void. Its surface glowed faintly, illuminated by countless windows and external lights. To Alex it looked chaotic, yet strangely beautiful, a sour testament to the resilience of those who called it home. Once they docked, Lyra powered down the ship and turned to Alex. Stay close, she warned. This place is crowded, and not everyone here is trustworthy. Alex nodded, slipping the wristband back onto his arm. Though it no longer guided him, it served as a reminder of the bond he shared with Lyra and the sacrifices made to keep him alive. Together they stepped out of the ship and into the bustling heart of the trade hub. The interior was a maze of narrow corridors and open markets, filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Humans mingled with aliens, haggling over goods or exchanging information. The air buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages, some translated automatically by devices, others left untranslated. Stalls overflowed with exotic wares, glowing crystals, strange fruits, advanced tech, and the scent of spices wafted through the air, sharp and unfamiliar. Alex followed Lyra closely, his senses on high alert. Despite the apparent order, danger lurked beneath the surface. Thieves darted through the crowd, snatching valuables from unsuspecting victims. Guards patrolled the area, their weapons visible but rarely used. Everyone seemed to operate under an unspoken code: survive, but don't cause trouble. Lyra led them to a quieter section of the hub, where a group of humans gathered around a makeshift table. They were rough-looking individuals, their clothes patched and worn, their faces hardened by years of hardship. One of them, a wiry man with a scar running down his cheek, noticed Lyra and Alex approaching. His eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What do you want?" he asked gruffly, his hand resting on the hilt of a knife strapped to his belt. Lyra raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "We mean no harm. We're looking for someone who can help us contact Earth's alliance." The man exchanged glances with his companions, then stepped forward. "Why should we trust you? Especially with whatever that is." He pointed at Alex, his tone laced with suspicion. Before Lyra could respond, Alex stepped forward. "Because I'm human," he said firmly, "and because I've got a story worth hearing." For a moment the man studied Alex, his gaze lingering on the scars marking his face and arms. Then, with a curt nod, he gestured for them to follow. "Come with me. Let's see if you're telling the truth." They were led to a secluded room, its walls lined with crates and shelves stacked with supplies. A woman sat at a small desk, her hair tied back in a tight braid, her eyes sharp and calculating. She introduced herself as Mara, a coordinator for Earth's refugee network. As Alex recounted his ordeal, the crash, the experiments, the escape, her expression shifted from skepticism to concern. When he finished, Mara leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. "You're saying the Xantherians are interested in humans now? That they see us as a threat or an opportunity?" "Both," Lyra interjected. "Some factions view Alex's kind as dangerous, while others believe studying him could benefit their society. But this isn't just about Alex. It's about understanding each other. If we don't find common ground, Fear will drive both sides to conflict. Mara frowned, clearly weighing the implications. Finally, she sighed. All right, I'll send word to the Alliance, but this changes things. Humans have been trying to stay off the radar, rebuild quietly. If the Xantharians start poking around, it could destabilize everything. Alex nodded grimly. I know, but ignoring. The problem won't make it go away. We need to show them we're not enemies, that we can work together. Mara agreed to help, arranging for temporary shelter while they awaited a response from Earth's leaders. Over the next few days, Alex and Lyra stayed in a cramped but secure quarters provided by Mara's network. During that time, Alex reflected on how far he'd come and how much farther he still had to go. Surviving wasn't enough anymore. He needed to prove that survival meant something. One evening, as they sat in their quarters sharing a meal of ration bars and dried fruit, Lyra spoke up. Do you think they'll listen? Your leaders? Alex shrugged, chewing thoughtfully. Hard to say. Some will see this as a chance to build bridges. Others will see it as a risk they're not willing to take. Either way, we've planted the seed, now we wait. Lyra nodded, her antennae drooping slightly. And if they refuse? If they decide the Xantharians aren't worth the effort? Then we find another way, Alex replied firmly. We've already shown that we can adapt, survive, and fight when we have to. If we have to do it again, so be it. His determination seemed to reassure her, and for the first time in days, a faint smile crossed her face. You remind me of my people before we lost sight of what truly matters. Maybe there's hope for us yet. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Mara entered, holding a data pad. Her expression was grim. We've got a problem, she said. Word's spreading about you two. Someone leaked the story to the wrong ears. Bounty hunters are sniffing around looking for paychecks. You're not safe here anymore. Alex clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. Just when they thought they'd found refuge, danger reared its head again. What do we do? Mara handed him the data pad. On it was a map of the trade hub, marked with a route leading to a hidden docking bay. There's a freighter leaving tonight. It's heading toward a human-controlled sector. If you move fast, you can slip aboard unnoticed. Lyra stood, her movement swift and decisive. Let's go. They moved quickly, sticking to shadows and avoiding main thoroughfares. The trade hub buzzed with activity, but beneath the surface, tension crackled. Bounty hunters lurked in corners, their eyes scanning the crowds for targets. More than once, Alex and Lyra had to duck into side alleys or blend into groups to avoid detection. Finally, they reached the docking bay. The freighter loomed ahead, its ramp lowered and ready for boarding. As they approached, a figure stepped out from the shadows, a tall, broad-shouldered human with a rifle slung over his shoulder. You Alex Carter? He asked, his voice low and gravelly. Alex nodded cautiously. Who wants to know? The man smirked. Name's Cole. Mara sent me. Figured you'd need an escort. Get on board. We're leaving in 5. Without waiting for a response, Cole ushered them onto the freighter. Inside, the cargo hold was dimly lit, filled with crates and supplies. Another human waited there, a young woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. She introduced herself as Riley, Cole's partner. Weapons check? Riley asked, raising an eyebrow. Cole shook his head. No sign of pursuit yet, but keep your guard up. Once we hit the jump point, we'll be clear. As the engines roared to life and the freighter lifted off, Alex sank onto a crate, exhaustion washing over him. Beside him, Lyra sat quietly, her antennae twitching as she processed everything that had happened. For now, they were safe. But Alex knew better than to let his guard down. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of threats. Yet despite the uncertainty, he felt a spark of hope. Together, they had proven that survival wasn't just about enduring hardship. It was about finding purpose in the struggle. And as long as Alex drew breath, he vowed to honor that purpose, no matter where the journey took him. The freighter sailed through the void of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried Alex and Lyra toward a human-controlled sector. Inside the cargo hold, the air was cool and stale, filled with the faint scent of metal and oil. Crates, stacked high, created narrow pathways, casting long shadows in the dim light. For hours, Alex sat silently, his back against one of the crates, staring at nothing in particular. His mind replayed the events of the past weeks, his crash landing, the experiments, the escape, and the sacrifices made along the way. Each memory weighed on him, but there was no time to dwell. Survival demanded focus. Lyra stayed close, her movements careful and deliberate. She had grown quieter since leaving the trade hub, retreating into herself as if trying to process everything she had lost. Kale's sacrifice haunted her, just as it did Alex. Though they didn't speak much, their shared grief created an unspoken bond, a connection neither of them fully understood but both relied on. Cole and Riley kept watch near the cockpit, their voices low as they discussed the route ahead. They were hardened individuals, veterans of countless journeys across dangerous territories. To them, Alex and Lyra were just passengers, strange ones perhaps, but passengers nonetheless. Still, Alex couldn't help noticing how Cole occasionally glanced at Lyra, his expression a mix of curiosity and unease. It wasn't every day you saw an alien traveling alongside humans, especially one who had risked everything to save one of their own. As the hours passed, Alex began to feel restless. He stood and paced the length of the cargo hold, stretching his legs and testing his strength. The wound in his abdomen had healed completely, leaving only a faint scar. His body felt stronger than ever, almost as though the trials he'd endured had awakened something deep within him. Yet physical strength meant little without purpose, and Alex still struggled to define what that purpose might be. Finally, Riley emerged from the cockpit, her sharp eyes scanning the cargo hold. "We're approaching the jump point," she announced. "Once we pass through, we'll be clear of any pursuers." Alex nodded, relief washing over him. The jump point marked the boundary between neutral territory and the safety of human-controlled space, a place where bounty hunters and hostile forces rarely ventured. But even as hope flickered inside him, doubt lingered. What would happen when they reached their destination? Would Earth's leaders listen to their story? Or would fear and mistrust drive them apart? When the freighter finally docked at a bustling station on the edge of human-controlled territory, Alex stepped off the ship with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The station was larger and more organized than the trade hub, its corridors wide and brightly lit. Humans moved about with purpose, some dressed in uniforms bearing Earth's Alliance insignia, others clad in the rough attire of traders and laborers. Despite the order, tension crackled beneath the surface. Refugees from the outer colonies crowded waiting areas, their faces etched with exhaustion and uncertainty. Cole and Riley escorted Alex and Lyra to a secure meeting room, where representatives from Earth's Alliance awaited them. The room was small but functional, its walls lined with monitors displaying real-time updates from across the galaxy. A middle-aged man with graying hair and a stern expression introduced himself as Commander Hayes. Beside him stood a younger woman, her demeanor calm but alert. "Mr. Carter," Hayes began, his tone measured. "Mara briefed us on your situation. We need to understand exactly what happened and why the Zintherians are interested in humans." Alex took a deep breath and recounted his story, starting with the crash and ending with their escape from the trade hub. He described the experiments, the debates among the Zintherian Council, and the sacrifices made by Lyra and Kyle. As he spoke, Hayes listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Alex finished, the commander leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "This complicates things," Hayes admitted. "If the Zintherians see humans as a threat or an opportunity, it could destabilize the fragile peace we've worked so hard to maintain. But ignoring the problem isn't an option either." The young woman beside him nodded. "There's potential here, for cooperation or conflict. The question is, how do we proceed?" Alex exchanged a glance with Lyra before speaking. "We start by showing them we're not enemies, that we can work together. If they're willing, To learn about us, we should be willing to learn about them. Hayes studied him for a moment, then turned to Lyra. And you? Do you believe this is possible? Lyra hesitated, her antennae twitching slightly. My people are divided. Some fear change while others seek it. But I believe understanding begins with trust. If we can build that bridge, both our species will benefit. Hayes sighed, clearly weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. Very well. We'll send envoys to establish contact with the Xantherians. But make no mistake, this won't be easy. Diplomacy takes time, and patience is in short supply these days. Relief washed over Alex, though tempered by caution. Progress wouldn't come overnight, but it was a start, a chance to prove that survival meant more than enduring hardship. It meant finding purpose in the struggle. In the days that followed, Alex and Lyra remained at the station, working with Earth's alliance to prepare for the diplomatic mission. They provided detailed reports, answered endless questions, and helped design strategies for engagement. Though the work was exhausting, it gave Alex a sense of direction, a reason to keep moving forward. One evening, as they stood together on a viewing platform overlooking the stars, Lyra broke the silence. Do you think it will work? This bridge you want to build? Alex shrugged, his gaze fixed on the distant glow of a nebula. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But if we don't try, we'll never know. Lyra nodded slowly, her antennae drooping slightly. You remind me of my people before we became afraid of change. Maybe there's hope for us yet. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of optimism despite the challenges ahead. Together, they had proven that survival wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about finding purpose in the struggle. And as long as Alex drew breath, he vowed to honor that purpose no matter where the journey took him. As the stars shimmered in the distance, Alex felt a quiet determination settle within him. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with uncertainty and danger. But for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face it, not alone, but alongside someone who believed in the same fragile hope. Whatever the future held, they would meet it together, one step at a time.